Mark chapter 10, if you got your iPad, smartphone, or your Bible, Mark 10, verse 35 through 45. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus, and they said, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask." That's pretty audacious, huh? "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. They said, "Let one of us sit at your right hand and the other at your left in your glory." "Well, you don't know what you're asking," Jesus said. "Can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with?" "We can," they answered. Jesus said, "You will drink the cup I drink of and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right hand or my left hand is not for me to grant. Those places belong to those for whom they've been prepared." When the other 10 disciples heard about what these other 2 were asking for, they got very indignant with James and John. Jesus called them all together for a little staff meeting, and he said, "Boys, you know that those who are regarded as rulers over the Gentiles lord it over the people, and their high officials exercise authority over them. In my kingdom, it won't be so. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you doesn't get the corner office. You must be servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man," that's Jesus, "did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many." A very short little boy desperately wanted to play basketball. He even told his dad he wanted to become a pro when he was older. Knowing that his son would never be able to play the game because he was so short, the dad asked the local coach if there was anything he could do to make his kid taller. And the coach, in I guess sarcasm, says, "Well, you can take him down to the museum, put him on that old torture stretch rack," the coach said. Several weeks later, the coach asked the father if putting the boy on the stretch rack had helped. And the dad said, "Well, it didn't make him any taller, but he confessed to a lot of things I never knew he did." Maybe we all need one of those, huh? Well, we all have dreams, don't we? Absolutely. You know, to play starting guard on the basketball team, to play quarterback in place of Tony Romo. You know, just when I thought we might have a little shot, I saw headlines yesterday that said, "Tony's back." Then in lower letters it said, "in the hospital." I thought, here we go. That's just preseason. Or maybe it's to be top salesperson in your company, or have the nicest home in the community, or have the perfect family, or to retire while you're young enough to live out some of your dreams. Nothing is more natural than to dream. In fact, most people dream too small. Very few people are ever accused of dreaming too big, and God never rebuked anybody for dreaming big. Over 3 times he rebuked Israel for thinking and dreaming too small. So the real question this morning is, your dreams are probably too small. When Michael Dell was in college up at UT, his parents drove up for a surprise visit. They were concerned that Michael's hobby, which was building computers in his dorm room, was distracting him from his studies. And his father demanded he get more serious about his college work. He asked his son, "What do you want to do with your life, Michael?" And the young college student infuriated his dad by saying, "I want to compete with IBM." Now, at that time, IBM was the dominant computer company in the world. Not long after that, Michael Dell dropped out of college, raised the capital to start his own computer business. By 1999, 10 years after Michael Dell began his company, Dell Computers overtook IBM as the nation's largest seller of computers. How about that, Dad? Want me to pay off the house, Dad? You need a loan, Dad? We've got skateboard champions making $3 million a year. Teenagers in high school, mamas and daddies saying, "You're just wasting your time." Be careful. Be careful. Don't you let anybody diminish your dream. Our God is a dream-giving God, and if they don't scare the pants off of you, God didn't give it to you. you ought to have some, well, I'll talk about what kind in just a minute. So here's the problem with James and John. They come to Jesus, they ask a favor. Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. How many of you think that's pretty bold? Whatever we ask? You know, you and I do that with God. Lord, you know, this is San Antonio, usually in August, usually. We have a heat wave and a drought. Our lawns are looking a little bad today. I need you to send some rain, but don't do it on Thursday. I want to play golf. You know, I mean, who's in charge? It should be God giving us the orders, not vice versa. So James and John are asking a very tactless approach here, coming to Jesus. We want you to do for us whatever we ask. Now, thank God, Jesus, who is our Creator, knows we're kind of like that in our humanity. So he probably sighed and says, okay, what do you want me to do for you? And they said, not much. Just let us sit at your right hand and left hand in your kingdom. In other words, they wanted the corner office. They wanted the head table. They wanted power, influence, and prestige. And they wanted it so they could be connected. Now, they thought that's the least the master could do for them. Now, at least I appreciate their faith in Jesus. They knew who he was. They recognized him as Messiah, the one sent from God. But boy, they did not understand at all the nature of the kingdom of God. They're still living with the vision of their fathers that whoever this Messiah was going to be, that when he came, he would be a conquering hero. However, Jesus comes as a ministering servant and threw them all out of whack. So their understanding didn't fit at all what Jesus was trying to do. But it still showed their faith in the Master. What it didn't show was the level of their personal commitment. That was going to come later. So Jesus said, you guys don't know what you are asking. Can you drink the cup I drink of or be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with? I believe James and John were asking for donated dignity. They were asking to move to the head of the line, not on the basis of merit, but on the basis of their connection with Jesus. They didn't want to deserve that right from the Lord. They wanted a shortcut. They wanted an unfair advantage for power and prestige. You know, at a t-ball game, a little boy came up to bat. So he swatted the bat off the tee, the ball off the tee. He ran as fast as he could to third base. Not first base, third base. The coach went over to the little kid and said, son, you sure hit that ball a long way. The little guy said, I sure did. Yeah, said the coach, and you ran really fast to third base and surprised everybody. I sure did, the little guy smiled. I just have one question, the coach said. What made you run to third base instead of to first base? And the little boy said, well, because that's where I wanted to go, and I could get there a lot faster that way. That ain't much different than us, is it? James and John wanted a shortcut based on not what they had done, but who they knew. And I'm sure they felt they deserved that position. They just didn't want to wait in line. Now, Jesus doesn't scold them for that. You know, it's all right to be ambitious if you go about achieving those ambitions in an honorable way. You're honest, you treat people in a decent manner. Ambition is a powerful motivating factor in our lives. Nothing happens without a dream. What do you do for a non-ambitious person? Not much. Not much. Son, get up. Don't you want to be something, do something, accomplish something? You've got to have. It's selfish ambition that's the problem, not ambition. Everybody in this room ought to have ambition. You're not too old to have ambition. You know, if Moses was 80, my goodness, Abraham was 100, and he still had ambition to be producing a kid. That is ambitious. Put yourself in these stories. I mean, these are put here for our encouragement and for our admonition. Nothing happens without a dream. I think Jesus was disappointed by their request because it was so selfish. He said, you don't know what you're asking. Can you drink the drink I'm going to drink of and be baptized with the baptism I'm going to be baptized with? They didn't have a clue what he was saying. And they answered boldly and said sincerely, "Oh, we can." And Jesus says, "You will drink the cup I drink, boy. You will be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with. You have no idea what's coming. But to sit on my right hand or my left is not for me to grant. That's from the Father in heaven. These places belong to those for whom they've been prepared." So here's where James and John made their mistake. Their dream wasn't big enough. They were looking for petty positions of power. Jesus was asking them to join him in redeeming the world. They were looking for donated dignity. Jesus was asking them to lay down their lives for the ultimate dream, a kingdom where God reigns in every heart. Several years ago, a very influential book came out in the corporate world. You can see a picture of it on the screen, called Built to Last. I preached a sermon off of that book and that title. It's not a Christian book, but it had Christian principles in it. It's a corporate book. It was authored by James Collin and Jerry Porras. And they coined this term, look at it, BHAG, BHAG. BHAG describes a bold, nearly impossible vision. BHAG stands for Big, Hairy, Audacious Goals. Yeah, BHAG. Big, hairy, audacious goal. Now, common sense would tell anybody that a BHAG would intimidate people and discourage them from even trying. However, contrary to that position, surveys have proven that the idea of something so big and nearly impossible actually energizes an organization, and they get an upsurge of motivation when a leader presents a BHAG vision to his people. Big, hairy, audacious goal. You don't get those very much. It's a shame. It's a shame the corporate world does more about it than the church does. You know, I think sometimes if the church had a thought, it'd be beginner's luck. We'd still be singing out of hymn books in 1948, same old song. Shall we gather at the river? Yeah, and I hope you drown. Get out of here. We got a bigger life to live. Anyway, sorry. A great example of a BHAG is the vision announced by President John F. Kennedy in a speech May 25th, 1961. And I quote, "I believe this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish." And you got to remember, when he said that, our missiles were blowing up on the pad. We couldn't get a monkey in space. And yet Kennedy comes out with his BHAG vision. JFK was challenging our country to put a man on the moon within 10 years, and we did. 1969, Neil Armstrong put his boot print on the moon and said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." That was a big, hairy, audacious goal, and we did it. And we did it. Jesus was trying to get his disciples to forget their petty power games and for a moment focus on the biggest, hairiest, most audacious goal of all, which was to join him in his vision to redeem a fallen world. He was getting ready to lay his life down. They're worried about a corner office. He needed them to spread this message of his death and his resurrection, that the chasm between God and humanity had now forever been bridged. You can get to God through me. He needed them to lay their lives down, their hopes, their dreams, even their life if necessary, for the one goal, the salvation of humanity. He needed them to forget just a little bit about themselves, being masters. Instead, becoming servants. He wasn't distressed with them because they were ambitious. He was distressed because they were ambitious for the wrong thing. See, Jesus doesn't have a problem with ambitious people. God created us to dream, to invent, to be creative, to aspire, to strive for the best. God doesn't do anything half-baked. He does everything, and it's excellent. He made everything, and it was good. God doesn't do sloppy work. And if you're made in his image and likeness, there is within you that same desire. And so that's how the world advances, through ambitious people. Aren't you glad we're not on a manual typewriter, some smoke-filled office? Now you got computers and you got crystal screens on stuff, and everything is lighter and smaller, and somebody had a dream. I love you, Steve Jobs, wherever you are. I love you. I thank you for what you did. And people made fun when he talked about every home having a personal computer, and everybody said, what nonsense. Hello? How many of you have a computer in your home? Look, thank you. See that, Steve Jobs? Look at there. Be encouraged. Be encouraged. I don't know which way to look for Steve, but I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. I mean, just about everything we enjoy was created by people who said, well, if God intended man to fly, he'd have given them wings. Preachers said that. Yeah. And yet those preachers don't mind getting on a jet at 550 miles an hour to go somewhere. It beats a donkey or a boat, doesn't it? Somebody had a dream. I hope you keep dreaming. You know, we've been flying. My aviation experience, the average weight of a person was 170 pounds. That's when they started flying for weight and balances in airplanes. And, you know, we're 550 miles an hour in civilian aircraft. I'd like to see the speed of sound as normal aviation travel to go somewhere faster. You know, going from Dallas to Sydney, Australia, as I do every year, is 17 and a half hours. I'd like to go half that time. How about you? If you sat in that seat, you'd be saying, I wish somebody would dream a big, hairy, audacious dream. Yeah. Well, me too. And people somewhere are doing their little plan right now. Who would have known? Well, nope. I never grew up in a church that dreamed big. Ever. And what a shame, with so much life to live. And I thought, all we preached on was going to heaven and going to hell. That was it. And our songs were, I'll fly away. Just a few more weary years and I'll fly away. I thought, as worthless as you are, you should. Get out of here. Go on. It's just pitiful stuff we put. Just pitiful stuff. And I just thought, and God must be scratching his head, said, where did this nonsense come from? I made you. Come on, take over this world. Occupy till I come. Think big, dream, create, get involved, help people, expand the kingdom, for crying out loud. Sheesh. People said when we went away from hymn books, we were bringing Hollywood into the church. If only we could. That'd be good. They need Jesus. But I'm just thinking, we think technology must be satanic. Can you believe that? That's just insane. That came out of church. Unbelievable. Well, I'm not gonna live that small. So God created all of us to dream, to aspire, to strive for the best. That's how we advance. God uses ambitious people. Jesus has no problem with your desire to be the CEO, the desire to be recognized among your peers, the desire to have nice things. Not at all. The question Jesus would ask, is that it? Is that the extent of your dream? Because if it is, you aren't dreaming big enough. That's what he's saying. Those things are temporal. They're fleeting. I mean, who's going to be living in your $1 million home 100 years from now? It ain't going to be you. Who's going to be leading your company? It ain't going to be you. And if you fall over dead, who's going to be spending your insurance money? Your wife? But it ain't going to be you. Right? See, who's going to be leading your company? It won't be you. Your dreams are too small, Jesus said. They're only for this temporal world, and they provide only temporary satisfaction at best. Every time I have people rich and famous that are friends, and it's like every time they get the new and the biggest and the best and the fastest, then after 6 months, there's a new one coming out, and they've got to have that. This one isn't good enough. And they've run through 5 wives. That's not good enough. Got to get somebody thinner, hot or skinny or busty or whatever. And then it doesn't satisfy. It's like doing drugs. You take a hit, there's a buzz momentarily, and then pretty soon you got to have more hits and then more hits. Now you're breaking in houses because you got to get hit enough until you have a reaction and you overdose and you die. At what point do we ever wake up to say, there's nothing wrong with having anything? The point is, if it's got you, you're in deep trouble. And it never makes anybody substantially fulfilled. Or Hollywood be the happiest place in the whole world. You ever see more dumb people in your whole world to have such talent, to make such money? How'd you like to make $20 million for doing a picture? I could live on that. But I'm not going to go crazy because of it. But the value system is just so wacko. So Jesus is saying, boys, look, there's nothing wrong with your other dreams, but you got to dream a lot bigger. I've got big dreams, but mine are eternal. And this is only going to give you limited satisfaction at best. Anybody ever buy a new car and you have kids? You know, and boy, I'm telling you, you'll park that car 5 miles from the theater or wherever you're going because you don't want nobody to get close and scratch it. No, sir. You won't let an air molecule get near that car. You won't let the kids get in there with milkshakes or crayons or whatever. That's how it starts. 6 months later, you don't care if there's a dead dog in the back seat. You don't care. You don't care. There's dead French fries and the empty kids have left their cookie crumbs back there. And I'll get that later. You don't even think about it. What happened? The thrill is gone, as Motown used to sing. The thrill is gone. It doesn't sustain you. So the whole idea is if more would be sustainable, then these people would be extremely joyful and happy, but they're not. So they provide limited satisfaction at best, and Jesus is saying, come on, don't you want something bigger, something more? Don't you want to be part of, at least be part of something that's eternal? Don't you want to be part of saving a broken, dark world? Wouldn't it be marvelous to know that because of you, hungry people are being fed in your own city here and around the world? Because of you, little children have a chance at a better life. This past week, we had the privilege to serve over 600 children at a local elementary school. This is our second year providing them, because of your generosity, all school supplies needed for 1 year plus food. That almost elementary school is 100% filled with children subsidized by the government. That's how poor that area is. And this is our second year of taking care of those little ones, and the teachers don't have to pull money out of their own pocket to get these kids supplies. I looked at that picture the other day and I thought, I would rather have my heart warm with those little kids than a new flat screen TV or a new hot car or something. Nothing in the world was better than seeing kids happy and knowing you could make a difference in their life. And that'll go on a long time after I have to trade in my TV or car, right? Or your designer purse. Do something eternal. Have the purse, for crying out loud. Have the flat screen TV, but do something eternal. Do something that helps other people. And one day in heaven, you may get to meet people that you made a difference with. You just never know, huh? It's really great. That's what Jesus is trying to tell them. Make a difference. Save a life. Redeem a world. And because of you, people are finding meaning and purpose in their lives. Marriages are being healed. Lives are being restored. Young people are capturing vision. Addicts are recovering. All kinds of wonderful things. The poor are being fed. Missions are being fulfilled in Uganda. And on and on and on this ministry goes. And so that's purpose. That's meaning. And that's what life's really about. We only get a span of, 100 years here? That's pretty much over. But we get to live forever. Only two things are eternal: God's Word and people. People are eternal. You're going to spend eternity somewhere. And I hope with Jesus, you know that's heaven. Some years ago, we saw two of the richest men on earth, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, make a major commitment to using their incredible wealth to serve those unable to help themselves. They each donated over $42 billion to charity. You know why? Because after accumulating so much incredible wealth, they realized my dream's not big enough. It's just about what I've done. But I get a chance because of my position, my influence, my resources, to dream bigger and to join Jesus in making the world a better place. And so the people that seem to survive fame and fortune are people who suddenly invest in charities, helping the others non-privileged, and suddenly success becomes significant. Now it has real fulfilling purpose. And that goes on forever and ever. There are people all around us who've achieved their goals. They've got the nicest things. They're well known in their community. They've got power. They've got privilege. But unknown to most people, they're miserable and unfulfilled. They can't stay married. They can't stay happy. They've got the biggest and the best of everything, but their lives are still unfulfilled. They just can't figure out why. See, it isn't that they're too ambitious. It's rather they've got too little ambition. Their dreams are too small. They're only for themselves and for this life and for now. They never think bigger. In 1989, Chloe Coney left a successful corporate job to move back to her old neighborhood in inner city Tampa, Florida. A search for greater meaning and purpose had led Chloe back to her neighborhood to go to school to get a counseling degree. What was she going to do with a counseling degree, she thought? Well, she didn't know, but she knew God was leading her in that direction. Then one day, Chloe ran into an old friend from high school. In high school, this girl had been talented and ambitious. Now she's prematurely aged, addicted to drugs, living in a decaying neighborhood, and she's lost all hope for the future. She convinced Chloe to visit her old neighborhood and to witness the devastation caused by poverty, drugs, violence, and urban decay. And as soon as Chloe saw her old neighborhood, she knew that God was calling her back to minister there. She got a job with a community development organization. And today, Chloe Coney makes a lot less money than she did in the corporate world, but she finds much more satisfaction in her job. She helps build housing and create jobs in the inner city of Tampa, Florida. Chloe went on to state in the interview that her former, more comfortable lifestyle actually insulated her from really knowing and experiencing God. She says, now I know about His goodness because I've experienced God's blessings firsthand. Wouldn't we like to experience God's blessing firsthand? Maybe the problem, just maybe, is your dream is too small. Maybe that's why you're unfulfilled. Christ wants your help in redeeming the world. James and John wanted to sit at the right hand and left hand of Jesus when He came into His glory. And Jesus wasn't upset with their dreams. He just wanted them to know, boys, if that's it, your dreams are stinking too small. He wanted them to join Him in the biggest, hairiest, most audacious goal of all, to join Him in bringing salvation to this world. See, whether you're a doctor, a roofer, a contractor, a CEO, that's just how you make your money. That's the gift God gave you. But the ultimate call, if you're a believer, is to join in this big, hairy, audacious goal of redeeming the world. That's why we have 26 different ministries out there, hoping that you'll find a place to use your time, your talent, and your treasure in a productive way that's a bigger dream than just what you get, but something that has eternal value. And it's hooking up with Jesus in the ultimate mission in a world that's temporal. Heaven and earth will fade away, Jesus said. But His purpose will never fade away. His word will never fade away. And He wants me to join up and using my influence, my connections, whatever I have, to connect people to God and to His eternal purpose for their lives. And so He gives that to them. Jesus asked James and John, can you drink the cup I drink of? Can you be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with? They didn't know what it meant at the time, but boy, they soon learned. One tradition maintains that when James was executed, one of the Roman guards who led him to his death was so moved, he confessed to being a follower of Jesus Christ. Legend has it that James turned to him and said, "Peace be to you, my brother," and kissed him. And the two of them were executed together. I'm kind of thinking that was not what James and John had in mind when they came to Jesus that day. They had their dreams, but then they caught Jesus' dream, the dream of bringing a lost world to God. They saw Jesus laying down His life in order to make that dream a reality. If they're going to drink of His cup, they knew they have to be willing to make the same sacrifice He did. And today, over 1 billion people on planet Earth walk under the banner of Jesus Christ. Never in James and John's wildest dreams could they have imagined such impact and influence in a world when it was so small when they started with Jesus and the 12. They could not envision what was to come. When we do something for someone else, when we do something for a charity, for a ministry here, when we teach in a class, when we keep children, we have no real idea about what the long-range impact may well be on those people or a person. You just never know. In heaven you'll know. Once in a while we get a glimpse on earth, but rarely do we know the impact that we have. So the question would be this morning, what's your dream? Is it big enough? Or is it just for a bigger TV, a newer, flashier car, a second home up at the lake? Nothing wrong with any of that, but that's pretty small if that's as big as you can dream. Or can you join God in his dream to redeem a fallen world, bringing people to God?